Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Gospel Underground Podcast. This is episode 48, Consumer Fragmentation in the Self-Curated Life. How about that one? We are broadcasting live. Well, live for us from the Power of Change Worldwide headquarters here in Blacksburg, Virginia. My brother, Jesse Fury, is here today with a Bonhoeffer house on with a custom hand-sewn hat. Looking good, man. Looking good.
It's good to
patch.
be back. It's good to be back. Yeah, I got my patch sewn on by a local seamstress. So darn close. Look her up. She's on Etsy.
It wasn't sewn on in Malaysia. It was done here in Radford, Virginia.
By the way, this whole critiquing my wardrobe. I'm wearing all denim today.
Yeah, I'm not saying nothing.
But I did have lunch with somebody today. And they got out of their car and saw me in my all-denim ensemble. And they said, hey, I was just listening to the podcast where Reed was making fun of you for wearing all denim. I had the exact same outfit on. So I guess that's on me.
Oh, no, I like it, man. Jesse and I were talking right before we started about how I literally have no style, don't care about style. And I'm
You're rocking those slip-on
Skechers.
Skechers, though.
Yeah, I had a guy tell me that these were white boy shoes. I had no idea what he meant by that. And I told him, like, I give one crap about what you think these are white boy shoes. But anyway, man, I got no skills. And Jesse's not quite foppish. That was a word from last episode. But he's got a nice little his quan is high in the style flow technology. Hey, man, who's your NBA team? We were talking about NBA before we
Draft
started.
lottery was last night, and my team did not do well.
Not the Pelicans?
No, I'm not a Pelicans guy. I'm a Wizards guy. The Zards, we dropped from 6 to 9, which is pretty much on par with our luck. So not that I have much confidence we do well with the 6th pick or the 3rd pick. I think we'd be able to rock the number 1 pick. But
oh, man. Well, the Wizards, that's local Washington.
Yeah, I grew up in D.C. I was Bullets forever.
I respect that.
How about you?
They're not good. I told my son this. He's a big NBA fan, and I don't like the NBA until the playoffs. And then I watch the playoffs, so I like it. So I typically like the teams
Steph
that
Curry.
are good. I like Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Just because my son, he like irks my son because he likes LeBron James, and Steph Curry was always beating on LeBron James. The funniest tweet I saw this week was from a guy who yesterday, or was today actually, I'll go ahead and say his name, Jeff Metters. What's up, Jeff? Who's in Houston. He's a Houston pastor, author of Humble Calvinism. New book came out. Shout out for him. That's not even reviewish. But Jeff he subtweeted this thing that said Steph Curry banging down threes last night. And he goes, note all the moving screens. And I was like,
he's a bitter Rockets fan.
I was like, you mad, bro? Oh, man, last time I dropped...
Steph is cooking right now in the playoffs.
Man. They're splashing the Splash Brothers. You know, KD's hurt. They say, we don't care. Well, hey, 2 times ago when we were together, I dropped that little nonsense that you haven't heard yet, but you'll have to listen to me rap another time, Jesse, on that episode.
I'm going to go back and listen.
Yeah, but it is good. It's good. Check it out, y'all. But 2 times ago, we talked about new style secular religion, and we summarized some of that. And by way of talking about that, we talked about, secularism today has dogma, absolutizing freedom, sexuality, hypocritical views of tolerance, scientism, priesthoods, right? Scientists, therapists, artists, whatever, somebody to give us the truth, somebody to heal us, cathedrals, educational institutions, entertainments, maybe where the Splash Brothers play, heretics, absolutists, the wrong kind of Muslims, certainly sometimes of Christians, and militants, right? There are people that are militant on social media, curtailing free speech and education and new bigotry. You can't tolerate the intolerant. So that was our kind of breakdown of secular religion.
And these 5 pillars of secular religion, this is all you, right?
Well, I mean, I've been influenced by a lot of people over time, but this is my thinking.
You should.
Obviously, I knocked off the 5 pillars of Islam to really religiousize secularism. But yeah, that's
you need to write this book.
Yeah.
You got your 5 chapters.
We'll write the podcast.
I would read this book. I mean, I listen to the podcast too.
I don't want to get involved with the industrial complex that is publishing. I like just giving stuff away for free and writing.
Well, I didn't say you had to sell it. You could just write it.
Yeah, I could just write it. There we go. We'll expand on it, and we'll turn these podcasts into a book. Well, in closing that episode, we talked about some of the clashes that happen within secular kind of ideology. Like there's the gender wars, feminism versus trans activists, right, where will males who are girls take away scholarships, government business grants? This is actually becoming a thing, a big clash-up point. Modernists versus postmodernists, different kinds of atheists going at each other like P.Z. Myers, and Sam Harris, and then political ideologues on the secular left-right, Islamophobia versus Islamic ignorance. What does it mean to be an immigrant today? And then finally, this thing we said was consumer fragmentation of the community due to this idea of a self-curated life. The freedoms that we've created for ourselves has fragmented community. We're going to talk about that today in some detail. That'll be our main topic. But before we get that, I think you have something as our resident master of divinity in Rantology. I think you have a rant for us today. Is that right?
You're going to let me Rantology today.
I'm going to let you do it, man. If you use a podcast application that has graphics, check out our Rantology graphic on your screen right now. It's an angry-looking, screeching little bat, and I love it. Jesse, how about that? What do you got for us?
Man, okay, let me rant. Let me rant about Twitter beefs. Let me rant about Christian famous people using their platform on social media to beef with each other. I can't handle this, Reed. This is part of why I don't do Facebook and Twitter. I can't do it
because you get into beefs, or somebody prefaces that I don't want to cause any static here, but
yes, you do.
40,000 followers.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I mean, there's a little. So there was a little little Twitter scuffle in the very strange world that is the Christian subculture on Twitter.
Baptist people.
Yeah, Baptist. Yeah, that's probably my especially strange, weird subculture. But this is every week there's something, and here's what I want to say. I think oftentimes when we're subtweeting each other, when we're calling people out by name but not giving them an opportunity to respond or engage or interact. What's happening is sinful. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
There's the ninth commandment is being broken, where we're bearing false witness against each other. This happens all the time.
Gossip
is happening. And so I want, not that it's going to happen, but I want them to stop.
Yeah.
This is like
you should get on Twitter.
I should get on Twitter
and put them on blast and tell them to stop.
I'm going to start the Twitter beef to end all Twitter beefs. My literally dozens of followers are gonna chime in.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about it that drives me insane is the church and Christianity, like for the watching world, we're already people know that we're a dysfunctional family, right? And so. But that's family. Family's jacked up. People fight in families. But you gotta keep the fights inside the house. And when the fights spill out onto the street and everybody watches you go to town on each other, and then the next week you're like, hey, you should come over to our family cookout.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to come to that cookout because they know what type of people are going to be there.
I saw a tweet 2 days ago that said, hey, look, what comes out of people on Twitter isn't Twitter's fault. It's already what's in them. In other words, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth tweets. But the thing is, man, you don't need everything from everybody coming out all the time.
That's right.
We actually don't want to hear everybody's evil thoughts that might be inside them all the time.
That's right. Yeah. So let me extend the rant if you'll permit this.
Yeah. So you got 30 seconds.
Okay. So yeah, what stirs up inside comes out on Twitter, but Twitter itself is designed in a way to draw that stuff out of us.
That's right.
So the whole platform itself is an outrage platform. It's a follower build my thing, and I build it by taking aim at other people,
controversy, outrage,
and making others us them, and not only that, but the whole thing is fragmentational. It buffers me against other people. It helps. I draw lines and I put people in boxes, and I don't invite them into any kind of meaningful, incarnational, in the flesh, person to person conversation. I don't give them a voice. It drives me nuts. Well, so I like okay. One more thing. I'm taking 20 more seconds. Then Twitter especially is terrible at this other thing, where it takes everything. Everything is flattened, so that when I'm on Twitter, I got to engage with cute puppy pictures and office memes and Me Too movement stuff all at the same level, all super fast. And we're not designed to do that.
It feels insane, doesn't it? Where you really literally will scroll down somebody being cute and funny, somebody literally blowing someone else up, somebody talking about the most deep, painful issues in the world.
Yeah.
It's a little bit insane.
And the platform itself then undermines our ability to be able to like make allies, to think reasonably about things, because we blow someone up thinking it's the biggest deal in the world when it might not be, and vice versa.
That's right. And here's the thing too, guys. I've heard many of my friends, and I try, Jesse. I am on Twitter.
You do well on Twitter.
I try to weaponize social media, not for the destruction of others, but for the encouragement of others, sharing professional links, trying to learn things from people that I want to learn from, and then have some fun. But, we're not perfect in what we do on social media, but having those moments where you pause, but you just don't throw stuff back at people is very, very hard not to do. But one of the things I've been convicted of, and even conversations offline in the analog world with people, say, well, this is something I'm passionate about. This is a cause, but you can be right about a cause and then have a process or a way about going about things that is actually just really wrong. This is a passage in 2 Timothy in the New Testament of the Bible. Have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies, for you know that they breed quarrels.
Amen.
I think that's disobeyed constantly by those who respect the Scriptures. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach, patiently enduring evil, correcting his opponents with gentleness, so that God may perhaps grant them repentance and knowledge of the truth. So this is something that I think, if you're on Twitter, right, you're going to have Jesse rant at you. But seriously.
I mean, frankly, I won't. You know how I found out about that? I was reading, somebody pointed me to a Baptist news article.
It's news. What the Twitter beasts
so
are
I
actually news.
Won't know because I'm not on Twitter, but someone will tell me.
Well, our main topic, Jesse, is actually very, very relevant to your Twitter beefs, your beef with Twitter beefs, consumer fragmentation and the curated, self-curated life. What I mean by that, today we have created a world, and I'm going to be very careful here to not allude to the fact that I think this world is good or bad. But our world becomes very micro-focused on our own desires, our own needs, our own consumer preferences, which begins to fragment us into communities huddled up around niche loves, niche consumer goods, tribes around products or sports teams or whatever. And we treat everything this way today. Morality, ethics, politics, our own families. We're building what we might call micro selves, right, that love certain things. And then when other folks get near us, we kind of resort to this kind of power moves. Now, this is not a random occurrence in history. In fact, you can trace simple trends based on freedom, which we would say, right, on the Gospel Underground, we're pro-freedom, right?
Right. Yes.
We don't want to live in a place where there's no human freedom. So when we have certain freedoms, we create choices for ourselves. And the way this happened has been enabled by technology in some fascinating ways. Let me just give an example of music, right? Let's go way back in the day, back towards, when there wasn't a whole lot of technology. And if you wanted to have music, you might sit around the campfire warming yourself after killing a beast on the savannah, and you might sing some songs together, right? Maybe in some ancient Mesopotamia, whatever. You're making fire, you're making some music, you're playing the spoons, you're singing, and that was music made. Well, even in music in the home, people singing together, it was kind of a social event. When it moved into, say, like into the high concert halls of like high European society, Victorian ages, these kind of things, you're still listening to music together, right, in a place. It was a shared experience. Maybe it was deemed good enough to record it when we created, record players, that are coming back in style now. You could take that music then and play it in your room or something like that. Now, you see, even with small technologies like that, moving from a public shared communitarian experience to maybe a more personal one. Then started throwing music through the radio. We started to have stations, right? Because I like this music, I don't like that music. So we start to shift into our preferences and our tribes through radio stations. And then when you add in things like the Walkman. Now, Jesse, you're old enough, right?
Oh, I had a Walkman.
You probably had. I still have a Walkman somewhere it's in a drawer in our desk upstairs.
Okay.
And the only reason I kept it, just in case I ever need to play a tape, right? I don't know when that is, you know.
And you're still keeping it for that reason?
Yeah. Just in case somebody mails it to me on a pigeon and I need to play the cassette tape, right? I still have a cassette player for that. But the Walkman was an interesting thing, not just technologically, but it was also an interesting thing of what it did to culture and society. This is a quote from a book called The Perfect Thing, How the iPod Shuffles Commerce, Culture, and Coolness by Stephen Levy. This is Simon & Schuster, 2006 publication. Now, he starts talking about this personalization of technology when he's speaking about the Walkman, which is like a 1980s device. He said this: the Walkman was not about sharing. It was about not sharing. It was a me machine, an object of empowerment and liberation. The experience of listening to your Walkman is intensely insular. This is what a critic named Vincent Jackson wrote in an essay entitled Menace to Society. The Walkman signals the desire to cut yourself off from the world at the touch of a button. You close your eyes and you can be anywhere. Jackson's essay also dealt with the bad vibes that were beamed his way by bystanders who were indignant that he chose to reject their aural environment for the one of his own choosing. Worse than that, he had fun doing it, putting on his Walkman headphones. His message to the world, piss off. Now, what he's saying there is that when you were allowed to take headphones and put them on, and now we do this all the time through our iPhones or whatever, our Android phones, our Samsung Galaxy 10s, we choose the intellectual, the aural environment, what we're listening to. What do I want on my MP3 player? What I want to hear on my iPhone? We get customized preferences recommended to us by technology based on our listening habits. You know, for instance, Pandora. You say, hey, I like this. My wife will put in, like, I like that song, some country music song. She'll make a whole station around it. And then certainly curated playlists from Spotify, Apple Music. They recommend things to us based on our preferences. And so what happens, and this is just an example of music, is that we have this wonderful freedom and these wonderful choices. And man, let's be honest, we love this, right?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time because I really like this.
I don't like your stupid music, and you don't like mine. Well, maybe we don't even know what music we like, but that's kind of the way we can do it. Hey, if you're not into, you know, hip-hop music, you can listen to top 40 music, or you can listen to death metal, or you can listen to whatever country music you would like, or you could watch The Voice and hear all of them compete in a singing show. But this type of experience is enabled by technology, and we love it because it allows us to have and share the things we actually enjoy and be able to cut off the noise if we didn't like what was playing in the concert hall. The same thing has been true of information. Right, in the olden days, maybe there was a huge library in Alexandria, or somebody had a pot of scrolls in the Qumran community, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, where they shared literature. Libraries certainly evolved over the years, where we got very organized in our book publishing, certainly in our civilization, and keeping track of the making of many books, which there is no end. But then the digital technology revolution of the 20th century really changed everything, where you had almost this ideology about information combined with these delivery systems like the World Wide Web and packet switch networks like the Internet, where we could send massive amounts of data computer to computer and have it redundantly stored and shared and then retrieved very quickly. Now, that began mostly in academic settings where people doing research on a certain subject would, use the Internet to share information. But that became a very public thing in, say, like the early 1990s and onward. And some of you lived through this, where there was a website, this huge, big internet boom company called Yahoo, started by a Stanford graduate student named Jerry Yang. And Yahoo was like, oh, we'll make lists of all the good stuff that's now appearing on the World Wide Web. So it was kind of curated. People were picking and making a directory around different interests and topics and news and things that expanded very rapidly. Now, obviously, as information grew exponentially, it's going to be very hard for humans to keep track of that. But there were groups where, like, what were called web portals were created, like Excite, and Yahoo had one where you could pick your news sources and make your little homepage and come on. There was even a Christian one called crosswalk.com where you put your Bible verse on there and then your news stuff. It's the same kind of idea. But even then, that wasn't going to keep up with the amount of information. So Google, that was invented by Sergey Brin and Larry Page, two also grad students. I believe, page with the University of Michigan. Sergey, I believe, was Stanford, where they were creating these massive algorithms to search the internet very rapidly. In fact, they were like, well, why can't we put the whole internet on a hard drive and just search it really quickly? And basically, that's what they do. They constantly index all the world's information and create ways to search it very quick and then rank those search results based on influence and other links and things like that in their algorithm. It's a very, very powerful company now because they literally show you what you want. When you search Jesse Fury, it's going to come up with a few things. And then from there, we went to social media, right, where maybe you follow influencers who say good things and give good links, and maybe your friends. Of course, there's been collateral consequences to that, things like Facebook, Twitter. And now we're looking at a return to more curation, where like, hey, maybe we should care about good news sources, and where do I go to get that? So there's news aggregators like Flipboard or on the iPhone, Apple News, which would pull in maybe what are considered reliable news sources. But the algorithm still is holding sway. You know, like if you like this, you'll like that. And so advertising is done like that. But certainly Netflix spent a lot of money giving awards to people helping develop their recommendation engine, where, you know, if you like certain things or watch certain things on Netflix, other things shows up. I think it's become terrible, mainly because my wife, when I travel, she basically, it's a true story, she basically likes to watch like shows like the history of the Russian czars. And she's watching this show on the Russian czars, and she always falls asleep to it when I'm on the road. And she's never gotten past episode 2, but Netflix thinks that's all we watch. So that's all we get recommended. It's like this homepage is worthless to us because there's this algorithm, right, saying, oh, they like Russian czars a whole lot, so they would like this history of castles and William Wallace. And so it's I guess there could be worse things on our Netflix homepage, but that's the reality with information. We've gone through this, hey, let's pull it together with humans, and then we'll have algorithms that help us do it. But really what's driving these things still is this kind of, what do I want? What are my consumer preferences that are being expressed here? Now, again, we love this. This is a wonderful thing that we can experience. We can watch the shows we want on TV and not have to watch the stuff we don't like. Well, there's some assumptions that are at work, particularly we could call it Silicon Valley culture. Now, my undergraduate degree was in applied computer science and physics, and so I was around the people inventing a lot of things in the technological world. In fact, UNC Chapel Hill had a fantastic computer science graduate school, and so mainly computer graphics were big, the type of stuff that eventually turned into the Pixar machines and things like that was being done in the 90s at UNC when I was there. But there was this kind of ethic or these kind of baseline assumptions from technologists that have been at play, which I think have now caused some problems in our society. First of all, this idea of the democratization of information, or this mantra that information wants to be free. Like everybody should have access to all the world's information all the time. That's kind of a core value that comes out of Silicon Valley. Or the internet would be the democratization of giving everyone a voice, right? Everyone has a voice. This will be great, and everyone will be set free, right? I see you laughing, right? Because like,
it's not great.
Right? It's great when everyone has a voice, but if everyone has a voice, then everyone is saying,
you got to listen.
Everyone's saying everything. The other thing is, like, the most popular things are best. I listened to a podcast about YouTube's recommendation engines recently, and YouTube from the very beginning was like, what is the best? Well, it's what everybody watches, right? That's how their algorithms work. So if you're starting a brand new YouTube channel, it's very hard to break into that world because you don't have 10 million views, so you don't get visited as much or in their surfacing algorithms. But Google as well, you know, what is really popular seemingly should bubble to the top. That's maybe an assumption that maybe isn't always true. And then the lack of centralized control, right? Even things in modern economic and distributed finance theories like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, right? We're going to have a currency that's not backed by any government. It's supported by us. It's independent of everyone. No centralized control. We think that's great, or at least technocrats of Silicon Valley think that's great. But when you lack centralized control, what happens when all the voices that are all chirping at the same time, all tweeting, rapidly and vehemently start to disagree? What if behind the anonymity of the web, people start to be harsh and cruel and hateful, right? So what's happened is that there were all these internet optimists, that this creation of all these choices and giving everyone a voice would just make a better world. But really what's happened is that that worldview forgot that man is sinful and separated from God. And the good that flows with human beings also has the dark side of things, that for the sinfulness of the depravity of the human nature flows with it as well. We've talked about the resulting chaos here on the podcast, episode 34, the chaos of internet culture. But some of the things that happen is that when we have all these choices to say, hey, I just listen to these people, we can tend to create ideological echo chambers. If you're a Fox News watcher, you watch all the Fox News people, Ben Shapiro, that kind of thing. If you're on the left, you follow all leftists, and then everyone in your world is saying how stupid everyone else is and the other worlds are. And these worlds just clash, and your ideas are reinforced without being challenged. Certainly that leads to what scholars have called confirmation bias. You see something, what it's all about. That's what this is. This is racism. This is white supremacy. This is, and many times it is, right? This is those right-wing conspiracists. This is those leftist media
cultural
Marxists, and social justice war. These kinds of things happen because of this insulation from each other, because we have able to curate these lives just for ourselves of the things that we want to hear, want to listen to, and the voices that we take. So
this is really an interesting. This coheres pretty well with what Charles Taylor in his book A Secular Age talks about, the buffered self.
Yeah,
and in particular how in pre-Reformation times we had porous selves. In other words, the world was enchanted. There were, goblins and monsters and angels and
fairies
demons
in
and
the
fairies
woods,
in the woods. But also that buffering is connected to this sense of voluntarism. Like I have a sense of my own sovereignty and choice and things.
Right.
Some things in which are good, like we're talking about here.
Right.
But what happens is we become buffered not just from the fairies in the woods, but we become buffered from each other. We become buffered from the sense that God is sovereign, and we become more and more isolated and insulated. And really, when we think about what you're talking about, the power that I have at my fingertips, whether or not I'm thinking about it, it's reinforcing something, a belief system that I have about myself.
Yep.
And that is an issue that I don't think Taylor addresses technology very much.
Yeah, he's a little before. Some of the.
I don't think the iPhone was even out when he wrote it, or it was around
the long tail of what is happening and what will continue to happen. Was probably not.
And so this is really interesting to think about the curated life through technology and how much it continues to reinforce this sense of. Like the sovereign self, and really it insulates us from each other.
And we talked a couple times ago about the book, The Coddling of the American Mind, and how the fragility of people today who can't even hear, the candidate you didn't like gets elected for president, and we set up crying rooms on college campuses. I wish in coloring books, right? Go color and cry. Because Hillary won or Donald Trump's won, that we can't handle anything like that.
Which,
anymore.
by the way, was completely unthinkable because of the echo chamber and confirmation bias.
That's right. Yeah, right.
It was unthinkable that Donald Trump would win because there was such an echo chamber. And
That's right. They weren't hearing those who they thought were of a poor view of the world or something. So, but we don't want to be fragile people. We don't want to be uncivil people.
But I do want to listen to the music I want to listen to.
We do want to listen to and the podcast that I want to listen to.
Especially the podcast.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's my favorite music style, podcasts. But there is a consequence to it, right? And so I think even people in Silicon Valley and those creating technology are realizing some of the realities of the world in many ways that they've created. It's interesting to see articles today about Silicon Valley executives wanting to send their children to screenless schools when technology was pitched as this wonderful thing for kids in education, and now maybe not so much because we're seeing some of the other consequences. But some of the solutions to this fragmented everybody has a voice doesn't mean everybody's got a good voice. Not everyone has a right to speak on things. This is something that's been lost. It used to mean you'd have to either have a good reputation, a good name, some credibility to speak about something, maybe an education. Maybe you have written a book on something so that you weren't just spewing nonsense into the world. And that was respected. And I think people are realizing maybe we should continue to respect these things. So curation is something that's coming back. We're like, hey, maybe we should look at content that people that are smart and humble and wise and maybe learned have put together on a certain topic, right? And because otherwise we just listen to anyone and everyone on a certain subject. I don't want to get religious and speak about vaccines or anything, but these kinds of things happen and sometimes with severe consequences. And I know you guys are out there are right and wrong about vaccinations. So curation and trusting those who have a right to speak on something, I think, is something that's coming back. In recommendations from people are starting to matter more than just recommendations from algorithms. And now, shockingly, this is the one I think is a little shocking. The other solution to this kind of chaos today being proposed is censorship. And this is interesting for an American republic who has in the First Amendment of our Bill of Rights the right to free speech, right? So I think free speech has always been controversial. I think it will always be because people get to say things we don't approve of, we don't like, we think is hateful, we think is evil. And if we don't support that, then we don't really believe in free speech. We just believe in approved speech by the powers, right, that be. And so because the problems on Facebook and Twitter have grown so severe, and I think because like voices that people don't really want having a sway over folks, there are actually people being censored now on these platforms. Now, again, Facebook isn't the government. They're a private business. I think they can take Louis Farrakhan and Alex Jones. They can bar them from its services if they want to. But it certainly brings up the question then, once again, of censorship. Like, what kind of society we're creating? Because, well, we don't like all these people. Let's silence them. Because that just leads to the question of who gets to say.
Yeah, who has the power to censor.
Yeah. The grand, what Chuck Colson once called the grand says who. Well, that's wrong, says who, right? And in a secular world where there is no sovereign, there is no author of good, there is no moral lawgiver like we believe in, right? God who teaches us up from down, right from wrong. If that does not exist, well, who says? The grand says who kind of holds sways. And usually, and Nietzsche was the honest atheist of the late 19th century who said what will result, right, is the bloodiest century ever, which we experienced in the 20th century, as well as just a will to power of one point of view over another, where we just go to war on things, or you become a great person where you can subjugate all the people, and you're the one that says who. What a scary world that could be, because it does happen, has happened, and will happen throughout history. So what do we do, right? Do we listen to all that crappy music that other people like, Jesse, or do we stay in our curated boxes of self?
I'm going to keep curating my music.
Me too, man. Me too.
And my podcast.
Yeah. Well, how can we I've got a few recommendations just to close us out here today, brother. I do think, and this is something like we have children, both of us. I think that as we raise kids in this society, it's very important for us to even train them in some of these ways of engaging both with the full-flowing media and information age, but also with this yelling, Twitter beefing, chaos, shout each other down, get your coloring books in Christ because somebody disagrees with you age. So these are just some very simple, I don't claim any kind of high-mindedness to these recommendations as we close. First is to read and engage with broad sources. Curate them for yourselves. So you should prefer things that have footnotes, people that actually have experience in a certain area and discipline. That means they maybe have an education in that area. If somebody calls them a scientist and they don't have a PhD, they're not a scientist. I had one guy calling himself a physicist years ago in a pastor's forum, and he had a BS in physics. Like, bro, you're not a physicist. So learn to identify like credible sources. And I think in terms of news and politics, we ought to read well from both sides. Why? Because we want to weigh things with some fairness and patience. Secondly, okay.
Can I throw one out there? So, when we think about reading and engaging with broad sources, I think we agree about this. I think C.S. Lewis's introduction to Athanasius's On the Incarnation, the introduction is worth reading. I think there's a PDF out there you can read. That's where he mentions the importance of reading broadly across the generations. So reading in the past, and I think he recommends, reading maybe every other book from a past century. But he makes a really interesting point that must have been in that context especially shocking, that generations from now, people will look back at Churchill and Hitler and see similarities that were at the time, right? Like, so right now we might think that the person on the far left, and if we're on the far right, couldn't be farther from me. But we share so many similarities that are blind to us because of our cultural situatedness, that we don't share with someone from the 12th century or the 18th century, and so it really helps to read across the ages too.
Yeah, that's I think where the term chronological snobbery is used by Lewis, and the virtue of reading old books. So generational diversity.
We have a lot to learn from the ancients. Yeah.
And when you say Hitler and Churchill, people are like, oh, what do you mean? Well, they were both empire builders.
They were both modern men. They were both empire builders. They shared similar kind of perspectives on the way the world operates, even though they were far, far in extreme.
That's right.
Yeah.
We would still close enough to say one was a megalomaniac murderer, and one was trying to contradict and fight
yet they were
other
closer
guy.
to each other than maybe one would be to Thomas of Aquinas or something like that.
Yeah, a medieval villager who's living on on somebody's land,
or even Luther who thought that who threw his inkwells at demons in his office while he was studying.
Right. You don't do that.
I don't have an inkwell, but
yeah. And when you're looking for good sources, you do want to know their biases ahead of time. Like, you ought to know if certain news sources have a certain political leaning. That's okay to look at, like, oh, well, where are these folks coming from? You should know that, because people typically do grind their biases. You don't want to ignore them, but you want to know where they're coming from. And I think when you check people against other points of view, it's very, very helpful as we try to discern what's true from false. Now, we'll probably do a whole nother episode in the future on this, because it's really weird. Nowadays, it's like, well, if you could see a video or hear them say it, then we'll know it's true. Well, man, I tell you what, you talk about fake news. There are artificial intelligence technologies now where they can take someone who speaks publicly, like, for instance, like Barack Obama, and they can sample his voices and make them say anything. And so can you think of the havoc, say, that Russian spies or whatever could do with, just making, certain political people say something, and even doing it in video where it fully looks like somebody saying something they did not say. So we're going to have a lot to do, but footnotes, reputation of sources, knowing their biases, these are how we identify things as we engage with. And finally, the thing I really want to encourage all of us in today, because I think it's most lacking in our day, is to re-engage certain virtues, both in our engagement with content, whether that's knowledge or entertainment, but certainly in our engagement with other human beings. One of the things that's beautiful about the truth that Jesus taught is that people are made in the image and likeness of God, and by nature, by the very essence of what we are, people deserve our respect because they have built-in dignity. That has been lost primarily because we identify people as we either friend or foe, ideological enemy or comrade, and in doing so, we do not treat each other well. So being civil, right? And by this I mean kindness towards other people, seeking to have empathy, try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, as it were, to feel with them. And then as Christians, that we are trusting in God. We have hope for the future, and we're called to love people, even our enemies. And so as we interact, we need to fully embody, even in disembodied places like Twitter, we need to embody kindness, empathy, faith, hope, and love for other people. And as we interact with those we disagree on, how will we make the aroma of what we hold true look better by the way we adorn it with our own, I don't want to use the word, behavior, as it were, wherever we live, work, tweet.
That reminds me of in the Bible, Philippians 4, verse 8 says this, finally, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Like that recommendation of pursuing virtue in the way that we engage with one another is also about virtue in the way that we think, the way that we curate what we're thinking about and pondering. And by the way, this is a part of the reason why I have a difficult time with things like Twitter is I won't always engage, but I will spend like 4 hours thinking about how I would win that argument. That is totally meaningless. It's not good. It's not beautiful. It's not true. It's not honorable. And it's not treating someone with civility and kindness. And so I think that's a really good recommendation.
Or there's another phenomenon that I've been guilty of doing where I just read Twitter for 20, 30 minutes and I run myself into this corner of despair.
Yes.
Because I'm like, wow, look at how we treat each other.
Yes.
Look at how horrible this is. And look at all these people jumping in doing the same thing. This is not good for anybody. And then I leave like discouraged about the earth and whether God is real. It's crazy.
Yeah.
In light of Philippians 4:8, which my kids' school used to have that as kind of a theme verse, which I really love. Similar thing from the Old Testament. This is out of Psalm 19, and I think we'll wrap it here, Jesse. As a believer, we follow Jesus. As a member of the Gospel Underground, interacting in the borderlands between the church and culture, we have to have this mind in ourselves. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable, be pleasing to you, O Lord, my God, my rock and my Redeemer. We do, friends, do all things, our curated playlists, our Netflix recommendations, our reading, our interaction with information. We do those coram Deo, before the face of God, who is good and will lead us in a good path in our interactions in this curated day as we create ourselves out of the fragments of modern 21st century life. The Gospel Underground is a joint production of Power of Change and the Bonhoeffer House. Please review us on iTunes. 5 stars are acceptable. I think we're up double 21, something like that now, Jesse. We're getting the podcast out there. Send your comments, feedback, and or questions you might want us to take up here on the Underground to info@gospelunderground.org. We are a dialogue taking place in the borderlands between the church and culture, between Alex Jones and Louis Farrakhan. Ban him from Facebook. We hope to see you out there. Peace.